So, welcome everyone to a first episode of
Love Unites Humanity, the Lost Under Heaven podcast. Here we are. We're at home. It's a Sunday, and we thought we would start things off by having a conversation just around what we've been up to for the past couple of years.
Who we are.
Yeah.
For the ones that don't know.
Well, of course, the ones that may be out there who've never heard of Lost Under
There's
Heaven.
always new people that discover
You gotta
who you
believe
are.
it. You gotta believe it. So introductory kind of conversation, and so let's start here. Who are you, Ebony Horn?
I am one half of Lost Under Heaven, and I sing and sometimes play bass. I have a visual arts background, and I am a group sound therapist. Besides that, I express myself through poetry. Love to dive into artistic research, which focuses all around the journey of consciousness itself.
Consciousness itself.
And who are you?
Well, my name is Ellery James Roberts, and a songwriter, a singer. I've been fortunate enough to be able to hustle my way along these years, doing what I love, which is expressing myself through song. In recent years, I've become more interested in myth. The myths, the stories that define us, that curate our lives. And also poetry, I feel, is kind of the lens in which I approach the world. A poetic eye is something I kind of hold dear to in those terms of identification. We've been working together. We are in a relationship. We have been in a relationship for over 10 years. And we've been making Lost Under Heaven for...
I think we started in 2014.
Quite a lot of those years. Well, there's several dates. There's the mythological date, which is the 21st of December 2012, which is the moment that we are together in Amsterdam.
Yeah. But then, working together,
Yeah,
where
right.
the fully fledged idea, business.
When the partnership formed, when we signed the dotted line.
This is the Capricorn talking.
The business relationship.
What do we create?
What do we create? Well, we create music.
Yeah, our main focus has been music.
Records.
I would say we've been venturing into filmmaking as well. Like, we've directed a lot of our visuals, graphic design, the whole kind of visual aspect of how we express ourselves.
I mean, it's the part of me that likes to flaunt itself pretentiously, likes to talk about the total art, the great work that involves sound, vision, taste, touch, smell, a sensory experience, and that's the way I kind of like to think about what we're creating with Lost Under Heaven, is this immersive world that is, again, a perspective upon the world that we live in. And I think this is why we want to make this podcast, is to create a space where we discuss and we dive into the themes, the ideas that we try and express in the music. That on one level you can just listen to a song, and that's the beautiful thing about music, is it just hits you and you don't need context. You just feel that response. Particularly the music we make is, for me, is a big part of emotional processing. I don't really know how I feel about a song until months later, because it's just expressed something. There's a kind of emergence, a novelty of that. But what am I saying? Yeah, the podcast has been this opportunity where we can
open up ourselves more as well, and talk about the ideas that inspire the work in long form. So anyone who would be interested in that can join us on that journey.
Yes, it's an offering to those that are interested, as always. So let's regard the notes what have we been up to for the past few years? So we can start, for those that may not know our music, our work previously. We've released 2 records, Spiritual Songs for Lovers to Sing in 2016 and Love Hates What You Become in 2019.
Yeah.
So those 2 records were released on Mute Records, a London-based label, and in the end of 2019 we made the mutual, amicable decision to leave Mute and go our separate way. Yeah,
embark on a independent route. We're taking kind of like, I think we're both very adventurous souls, and seeing how quickly kind of like the technological innovations change the landscape of how to share your music as an artist, communicate with the people that appreciate your work, and there's just a sense of quickness that's appearing. And to just take full control of our kind of like destiny with our creative journey.
And of course, it's not to say we have a dogmatic approach of how we want to create and release music. I think we're feeling a little frustrated and a little sense of limitation with the situation and experiences we've had, and we've always kind of had this feeling where we feel placeless within the music industry. I always say maybe it's through my own ignorance, but I'm not very aware of our peers. I feel like there's the people that I look to are outside of music, and within the music industry, it just feels very like stagnant and stagnating, and it's something we've wanted to explore, different possibilities, different potentials. So wiping that slate clean felt like the beginning of something new. We had several plans that then the moment of the pandemic kind of knocked back our plans. There was this initial web series that we were developing, which was going to be video and storytelling, small content, but that kind of the funding was there and then disappeared in the midst of the pandemic moment. So we were kind of left in a moment of, what would you say? How would you characterize that moment?
Introspection.
2020. Introspection.
You could imagine yourself, this is what I do. I imagine myself to be a little boat that just has to readjust its course because it ventured off its initial kind of like route. So it's just kind of like asking yourselves the questions: is this still making me feel excited about the things I do? Is this still the right journey for me to take, or do I have to make small changes that bring more inner fulfillment? Because I'm not a person that wants to do things the cookie cutter way. I never have been, and I like to challenge myself on a creative level and just the innovative level, and I think that's where we find ourselves right now.
I think also, as you were talking then, I was realizing everything I was saying was the surface level of what we were doing. On my own experience, there was, it can be perhaps framed within the Saturn return moment that I had been going through, but I was experiencing on an inner level a very uprooting and a great churning, and essentially maybe an overdue death of an adolescent identity that I hadn't fully transformed or transmuted. And a difficult period of time, a return of depression and just a heavy sense of existence, and many other things, sense of failure, sense of lack of clarity of what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be in this world. So this all kind of coincided with the moment of, let's just go, and it's almost like you just cut your tethers and see what happens. And I always have a tiny little bit of, I don't know if it's a recklessness, but it's like you make the action and then you see what those ripples bring up and respond to them. So all that said, and this is stuff that perhaps we'll get into deeper on
A different
subsequent podcasts. We're kind of keeping this as a top level overview.
So we like in that period we decided to start a Patreon, and kind of like from that moment until now we managed to build a really nice, engaging community. It just made even the sense of like the value you get from just the kind of like relational interaction.
I mean, there's that first sense of necessity that we were as many without a source of income during those moments of 2020, 21. So starting the Patreon brought in a revenue stream that we were able to invest into making new music. We were recording a lot at home, but opened up the possibility of going into a studio, and in the way that we would jam and improvise together in the mornings at home, new songs started to emerge, and a new work, which has become this record, which we are on the precipice of releasing into the world, started to come into being. And as you say, that community, I think, really informed like a different mentality, a different approach, and a more open sharing approach, which we have.
Yes, and I think it also brought a clarity on how to move forward, because for both of us that community plays a big role. I think we got a lot of energy and just energy out of it.
Yeah.
To fuel our next.
Well, for me, the most fulfillment I've found is like a sense of connection. When I express, when I release music, when I create things, it's always that yearning for connection, that reaching across a void. So, let's move forwards in the story. So in the process of creating the new work and reflecting on the next steps that we would take, inevitably there was a moment where we looked back at when we first started Lost Under Heaven, the initial idea to collaborate and the desire to collaborate in Amsterdam, where I had moved to live with Ebony, who was studying in the art school, which is where the idea for Le initially started, in a perhaps quite art school way, as a conceptual lifestyle brand. And we dug out this manifesto that we wrote.
The first manifesto ever.
That we wrote at this time, which I remember you presented in some kind of like group show on a teleprompter. I mean, there was a sort of a playfulness, a kind of tongue-in-cheekness, but also when reading back over this, there's a lot of the essence of what we still are exploring, but spoken in much more dramatic terms. Ebony's going to read a little of it.
Yeah, just before I start reading it, I also want to say something about that creative process. Like, you might write something at the beginning of when you start a project, and you leave this kind of like trail of crumbs, and a few years later, you look at it, and all these crumbs start to fall kind of like together. The pieces of the puzzle just create this whole image, and it's like, wow, I can see it now, and I now know how to kind of like give this idea more life and energy, and I know how to express it.
I feel like we've always had quite a clear vision of what we wanted to create with Lost Under Heaven.
Very big.
Yeah, I mean, almost like the grandiosity of the vision has been the challenge of keeping up there. And it's not that we got sidetracked. I love the records that we've made, but I feel that there was suddenly a moment where this initial conception became, I don't know, it felt like what's that phrase? It's like you didn't achieve the vision, you just made the vision small. It's like it became something other. And then in this period, we've been essentially recharting our course on creating that vision, that life. And I think the fact that we called it a lifestyle brand also is always, it's like, for me, it's cultivating a way of being in the world, which is a lifestyle, you know?
Yeah, and creativity for us is very tied into a way of living, a way of existing. And for me personally, from my perspective, this feels like the beginning of how it was always intended. Like the previous, obviously that had its way place in the world as well, but it felt like almost we shared the experimentation of what it. There were forms, but it wasn't really fully formed into its full being. And now there is a clarity, and that's why it feels like there's a whole new energy and a fresh kind of like start.
All right. Thunderclaps. It's a dark dawn. The sun is rising. And a voice booms from the heavens.
A universal shift is overtaking us. It is not a new political, religious, or economic system. It is a new mind, a turnabout in consciousness, a worldwide wave breaking across this new sky. As two wolves, Le looks to the moon whilst the crayfish crawls into the light. The promise of a good life through material consumption has left an omnipresent void in the heart of man. As a lifestyle brand, Le aims to fine-tune the mind and body, revealing a level of being that is suffocated under the commercialized surface celebrated by the mass media. Le sees in black and white, projecting danger and majesty upon the lifeless technicolor of modernity, laying in the honest spontaneity of instincts, with an empty belly and the eyes of an aesthetic disregarding all conceptual excuse for dated ego structures. Le hates what you have become. Le holds the condition of humanity as its subject and inspiration, working to create a different kind of existence based on a vastly enlarged concept of human potential. Whereas a traditional lifestyle brand focuses upon name and exclusivity, Le aims for a collective consciousness, breaking through old limits and past fears, towards the possibility for individuals to connect to others in a meaningful way. Le looks to the whole. I am nothing, you are nothing, and we are everything. Boom.
Mic drop. Yeah, so I mean, it was all in there from the outset.
Yeah, I think also what's very present in its piece of text is, we have a very kind of like spiritual drive or drive to know the self. And to know the self, you then understand the other, understand the world better, or see how the world works in that sense.
Which is all part of the journey. I mean, that is the true work, the great work. The life that we're living, the creativity that we're producing along the way, for me always just feels like
wants to challenge something a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it is the it's like the technique, it's the practice. It's the practice to move you through the process, that churning.
Because I believe art has the power to be very transformative. It has the power to hold beauty, but it also can be very transformative.
I mean, it's an interesting one. I agree, as an artist, as someone who pursues creativity, but I feel it's so much in the inspiration. The true transformation that I've experienced has essentially happened in the stillness and in the relationship with others. You know, it's like the art has always inspired the sense of possibility, that sense of potential, that there is something to become. Yes. Transformation is possible. Transmutation, transfiguration is possible.
I think what I mean is, like, let's say when I listen to a song, it works on me. It's the same as when I watch a film, it leaves a certain impression. And that is all different to depending what you're going through or what I am going through. But it leaves that impression to kind of like do its work almost kind of like on an unseen level. And that's what I really love, because for you that song carries meaning, but then when I sing it, for example, it has such a different meaning because of my relationship to it.
And this also brings me back to thinking that Lust Under Heaven, the impulse is almost addressing this sense of a meaning crisis, a crisis of meaning that many have talked about, and that particularly in this normative Western world that we experience, there's a certain sense of soullessness, and perhaps a secular culture that is filling the void of meaning with consumption, with hedonism.
Well, with stuff outside of ourselves, perhaps.
And when we started Lost Under Heaven, it was very much the feeling of being within that, a seeker of meaning. This phrase, the great longing, that I have tattooed on my hand, is from a poem by Khalil Gibran. But we also named a song, The Great Longing. But for me, that great longing, that yearning, it's always been present in my life. And I'd characterize it now in with years of reflection to that particular early moments of, teenage years, early 20s, of just this sense of this can't be it. Like this life that I'm shown, that I'm experiencing. I had the kind of unique and strange experience of being in a hype band that toured the world when I was 19, 20, 21. And on the surface, what people would regard as success just felt so hollow and so unfulfilling. And sure, there's many reasons for that. But the thing that underlined it was just this yearning for something deeper, something realer.
And I think actually our first records were very much inspired from that sense of feeling the alienation, because we both felt that intensely, and that's how we connected. But we had this romantic idea to run away from the world and sail away
from this time's darkness.
And this new record just has a complete different energy, because we've had big perspective shifts happening within ourselves, within our work, within our relationship, within our understanding of just the experience of life. But
I mean, to speak on that, this period since the last record, 2019, so sort of the past 4 years, almost 5 years, has just been that churning of perspective shift. It's almost that complete dissolution of all that you had previously constructed as your sense of reality, truth, identity, and bit by bit it just collapsing in on itself, and the real introspection, the real work begins. And within that, certain moments of revelation, kind of I love this phrase of the numinous glimpse, the numinous experience, fleeting perhaps, but a sense that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so for both of us, I feel we're coming at things from a very different perspective than we once held. And within that, it is, for me, no, I don't want to talk about that now. I cut that there.
Yeah.
Chop.
So do you want to, because the name Lost Under Heaven, for me, always carried a lot of symbolism. And we often got many questions around the kind of meaning of it. So I like to share both our perspectives, because through conversation, each one of us always adds something different to it. It holds a kind of collective understanding, but then there's the individual meaning to it.
Well, if I was to start, the words that have always felt impactful, the lost, that sense of being lost, within it suggests that there was once something that you had that had become lost. And again, this ties with something that I've been reading and reflecting into more so in the past kind of 18 months than I had previously kind of dismissed, but the myth of the fall, and that there was once a state of being that humanity had And you can read myths on, the curse of humanity. I think is literalism. Reading things on mythological levels doesn't necessarily mean they're not true. They're true in a different way. So the fall, that we have lost something. We are a species with amnesia. I've heard it said, that there was something once, and we've fallen from that, and we are now experiencing the confusion of navigating this world without a clarity of who we are, what we're doing, our purpose.
Forgot the truth of our being.
Forgot the truth of our being. And then heaven, following that, of course, is from the heavens above us, the starry night sky, the vastness, the mystery. And then also, and this again is probably something we would like to spend more time focused in talking on, but this sense of kingdom consciousness, a state of being, Eden consciousness, that, it's not a physical place, it's not even a other place, a place beyond. It is in the here and now, in the way that you relate to the world, can we say. So that's, what I'll say on it for today.
I'd like to just add something to what you said about heaven and the vast sky above, but as they say, as above, so below, as without, so within. For me, symbolically, that heaven almost is the map of our inner being as well. So it's like, it has this double meaning of like being lost within your own being. Like lost trying to remember, being in an internal quest to...
And that kind of the archetypal map in the heavens for an astrological lens is something that's been useful for both of us on our kind of journey of comprehension and learning. Maybe more so for you, Ebony, but I've gained some insight as the Saturn return, as I spoke a little to earlier, kind of pointed me.
I mean, it helped me a lot to see the wholeness of my being, but perhaps we can save that for the second episode.
Yeehaw.
So for the meaning of symbology of the name, I actually wrote a little poem.
A poem from Ebony Horn. How are we so lucky?
As I looked up into the sky for answers, a sudden realization came to me. A wandering soul. Is that not what we are? Lost. In search of something yet to be found, or perhaps remembered. Reality. A symbol of heaven above. To be lost under thy heavens, lost in Maya's illusion. Confused. Unable to understand. But this is not a bad thing, for something is awakening. A memory of our true being, drawing us within as we look up to the sky. As above, so below. As without, so within. Lost under heaven. A pilgrimage we travel, together, with a longing for deeper connection. A search for wisdom, a search for becoming, deconstructing what was once known. But there's no map, no fixed path. We must make our own way, not following others, and rise from the half sleep of existence, a call to live life to its fullest from our authentic being. Something has awakened in me, something is unfolding, announced by my life. I thought I was in search of something, but realized it was already within me. And so I moved through life with understanding on this collective pilgrimage into the depths of ourselves. That's just a little writing I wanted to share with you all.
Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, thank you. It's another mic drop. Speechless. How to respond. So the note that I have was around this notion of individuation, or coming into wholeness, the fullness of self.
The authentic being.
Of the authentic being. Which is remembering to remember what you have always been. This framing I found quite interesting again, is that there's part of me that's always had, and it's kind of manifested in many different ways, a sense of deja vu, a kind of unspoken spooky sense of destiny, or as if I know how life is panning out, inevitability. And, that lots of people have lots of different opinions on this kind of stuff. And I all I can say is I experience it in a very visceral, intimate way, like it is something I hold as truthful and do not dismiss. I'm saying all this to say that that sense of potential, of this vision of who I could become, is also experienced as a sense of who I actually am.
Yes.
And the neurosis and the complexes that I've learned through the experience, essentially the voice of the ego, the inner critic, or the conditioning that I've embodied in my lifetime, the work has been, shadow boxing with that, and coming into a place of relation with that is useful. So that's something that I put on the smorgasbord of ideas that we're batting back and forth.
We're just very conditioned to think of ourselves as imperfect. And that we're always, I need to do this in order to feel better or to be how I should be. But kind of like I've come to the realization that it's already enough.
And I think, that I have some apprehension, say, about doing this podcast even. And they always come to being like, I'm not going to say the things that I need to say. I'm not going to express myself the way I want to express myself.
So perhaps the reason for this podcast for both of us, because that's the point where you have the ego chatting. And it is like, I just want to let go of perfectionism. I want to let go of this. I want to let go of that. And only by doing that is just by doing it. As soon as I feel fear coming up, I know it is not my true self. And I sit with it, write on it, let go of it, and just surrender into the moment and say, no, stop this. I do not want to be stopped by this stuff anymore.
The thing I'm also thinking about is I've spent a lot of the past few years quite hermetically sealed within our house, kind of cut off, and I feel like I've not really been in conversation. I've barely even speak to my friends, and there's a certain level of like enactment. There's a lot of thoughts and a lot of experiences that I've kind of sat with and integrated, but I don't really know how they have seeped into myself, into my being, until I start talking, until I start responding to a situation, until I start being in conversation. And, so having these conversations with you, inviting other people into the conversation is a real, is creating those opportunities to go out and do our thing and represent what we are authentically, and embracing the fact of imperfections, as you say. Like,
yes.
I wrote that thing about perfectionism, procrastination in the summer. The whole release of this record, we're going to see what happens, and there's no right way in which it should be done. We're going to try things that we think will work. Maybe they won't. But
letting go of many attachments of outcomes and just going with it, going with the flow, and most importantly, having fun. I am welcoming big amounts of fun into my life.
An abundance of joy is coming your way.
Have deep belly laughter.
Yeah, we need to, get a funny,
Yes, if anyone has an idea for a guest on our kind of like podcast that brings that energy, we have to think about it.
We just need like a Flavor Flav hype man that makes us laugh in between profound statements.
Yeah, and going back to like inviting other people onto our shows, I always like to remember that the others act like mirrors. So as long as we sit and are able to listen to everyone that comes into our lives we can learn so much. Even just speaking to friends, we get such a great understanding of the multiplicity of experiences and perspectives that are present within the world, and kind of like honoring that. I honor you and your differences.
Also appreciating that some
Yeah.
are very dirty, dull funhouse mirrors that are not exactly crystal clear representations.
I mean, the infinite is infinite. It will express itself in infinite ways.
The funhouse mirror show. So I wanted to ask you, Ebony, because sometimes people have sent us messages, and it's not really a critique, it's just more of an inquiry, but a lot of what we talk about, spirituality, it's like inverted commas, the woo-woo-ness of non-defined terms. But how do you relate, would you say, in the sense of religiosity? Your perspective within that for anyone that could ask.
I mean, I'm very interested in all religions, but for me, I'm not practicing any. I would say I'm way more like, at this point, I'm very much drawn to the non-dual teachings of like Tantra, Kashmir Shaivism, but it also links to like the Sufi teachings, and there's just something for me present there in the moment that's really connecting with the heart, and that's what I feel I need in this moment in time. I think that's my point on that for
that's
now.
All you
if
would
something
say.
else springs to mind, I'll just jump in.
Yeah, I mean, it's again the rigidity of dogma and ideology that I feel, it's like the cage of zealots. That's always something I've instinctively been repulsed by, like pushed away in my life. But in recent years, I've become intrigued by kind of the communication, for instance, in Christianity, that there is something being communicated that I feel is lost in the drab rote repetition of the church.
Yeah, I think also that has to do with the outward projection of, there is a God in the sky, and it's this outward kind of like appreciation.
Again, literalism, like the curse of humanity.
I think we both believe that's something to be found that's present within us and within all of everything in this world.
Well, yeah, it's the essence, the flash, the spark, the essence within. Yeah.
And I even had to do a lot of deconditioning with the word God, because it carries a lot. Like when you speak about that, people will have their own.
Well, I still feel uncomfortable about it.
Yeah, I don't. I think for me it's become so clear of what it is and what it is to me. And also, I think I'm not that rigid into, like, I constantly shift in my understanding and perspectives because I might learn something new. So I try to remain as open and just like try to like tap into different experiences and just see what is it for me that feels good.
The exploration.
Yeah, of my experiential journey into everything of like the journey of spirituality in that sense.
I think this is something we both also, I'm actively engaging with it with a mentor, but Jungian perspectives, working with dreams and active imagination, and essentially the sense that each person is filled with their own personal iconography, their own imagery, the imagery that is in their psyche, essentially, that are their own symbols. And that there's no higher authority to say your dream means this, that symbol means this. It's in your relationship with that symbol.
Yeah. Well, that's also why I believe you should always ask yourself, what does it mean to me? But again, I think we, from like conditioning, we like to go to others to, please tell me, what does it mean? Or
well, it's nice if someone can just give you the answer, but they
ain't
got the answer,
like
Sway.
Yes.
Sway does have the answer, though. Okay, so we had to stop there because the conversation broke down into nonsense. So what is the answer, Ebony?
Love. Unconditional love.
Love is always the answer. So there's the title of this podcast, the title of the series, Love Unites Humanity, which is another LUH backnerim. Is that the word? Is that even a word? Starting with la and working out words that fit in it. Love Unites Humanity. And I just wanted to finish the podcast by talking a little bit about love. Do you want to talk about love with me?
Yeah, but you start.
So, love is one word that we use.
Sorry.
Oh my God, what? Is it too much of a Hallmark hippie card?
I just went, so, love is one word.
It is.
It
Well,
is
if you'd let me finish.
spelled with 4 letters, containing a capital L.
Well, depending on how you use it, could be lowercase l. All right.
Never always capital L.
Exactly, because love is.
Bliss.
Well, this is what I was about to try and talk about before you ridiculed me in front of all my friends, family, fans, everyone who was out here.
Guys, you are going to get the true Ellery in the show.
I'm going to give you the hot
he is
sauce
so
right
shy. His cheeks are red right now.
Shut up!
We won't put this in there.
No, we're putting it all in. Exposing this is the truth of our lives together. Exposing unfiltered love. Please, I just want to talk about love. You can't take me seriously anymore.
Well, you're right in my ears.
You're right in my ears.
I'm trying not to laugh.
Love them right in your ears. Let's just talk about this. Just finish this off. You know, you gotta respect people's time. We can't be chatting for hours. They've got lives to be getting on with. So love. We use the word love in many situations, and I feel it becomes quite diluted by its use as just kind of I like it, I love it. I think the love that we are uniting humanity with is this impulse that is a radical, transformative. I like the characterization of the aliveness of eros, that sense of a generative life force. Love is the essence of our being that comes into relationship with others, and it isn't given away to another. So we are in a relationship. We say, I love you to each other. But that love isn't finite. It's not, I love Ebony and therefore I'm done. It's like I love my neighbor. I love the man on the street. I love the woman on the street. I love the neighborhood
cats.
I love the cats. I love all beings in creation. So it sounds, again, to be put into words starts to feel reductionistic. And I think this is always a sense of the formless is reduced by language. But that's,
another episode.
That's a beard scratcher for another day.
What about the people who don't have a beard?
Sorry.
Like me.
Yeah, I mean, whatever they call people like that. A man's been cancelled for saying less. I want to read you something that I've always loved from an anarchist organization called Crime Think. And we shared it with our first song when we released it, Lost Under Heaven. But I would like to read it again. Love transforms the world. Where the lover formerly felt boredom, he now feels passion. Where she once was complacent, she now is excited and compelled to self-asserting action. The world, which once seemed empty and tiresome, becomes filled with meaning, filled with risks and rewards, with majesty and danger. Life for the lover is a gift, an adventure with the highest possible stakes. Every moment is memorable, heartbreaking in its fleeting beauty. When he falls in love, a man who once felt disorientated, alienated, and confused will know exactly what he wants. Suddenly his existence will make sense to him. Suddenly it becomes valuable, even glorious and noble to him. Burning passion is an antidote that will cure the worst cases of despair and resigned obedience. It goes on, but that's all I'm going to read for today.
Yes, I think love will get its own episode as well, because there's so much more to talk about. But this was just adding on to the meanings of names, symbols.
Announcing it all. Symbols and the thought forms repeat. So we have a new song coming out next week.
22nd of Feb.
Which is this fantastic portal where we're all going to become radiant light beings as soon as you hear the music. As soon as it starts with this drum beat, and that drum beat triggers a heart palpitation that transforms your entire being. So watch out for that on 22nd of February 2023.
Thank you for listening to our first episode. And if you want to support us and our work, we have a Patreon. We'll add the link into the description.
You can also join or support via Substack. And, do the whole thing. Like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, your brother, your mother, your sister, your lover, your neighbor.
Yes, and we're excited to take you on this journey with us, because we're opening up.
We're so excited. Opening up like a little flower in spring.
Flower of life.
Blossom in spring. All right. We need about. How do we sign off? What's the catchphrase? Everyone needs a catchphrase at the end of their show.